PIT training for forklift and pallet jack. PIT stands for Powered Industrial Truck. All PIT operators must be trained, evaluated, and certified before independently operating a PIT. All newer PITs should be equipped with a seatbelt. Older equipment should be retrofitted with a seatbelt if feasible. All newly acquired PITs should meet the design and construction requirements of the relevant American National Standards Institute Standard Part 2 ANSI B56.1 and should bear a label or other identifying mark indicating approval by a nationally recognized testing laboratory. Every effort should be made to replace equipment that does not meet ANSI requirements. Modifications to PITs are not allowed without express written approval from the manufacturer or authorized representative. Operation of a PIT requires completion of classroom training, hands-on work area training, and a driving test. Recertification must be accomplished at least every 3 years. Each day before commencing operation of a PIT, a pre-check should be administered and logged. The usage meter should be recorded to track hours of operation. Check fluids such as hydraulic fluid, transmission fluid, and oil. Gloves should be worn as a safety precaution while performing this task. Record the fuel level located on the fuel gauge. Check the tires for any damage, such as missing rubber, as well as making sure that the wheel is properly secured to the PIT. Ensure that the seat belt is secure and in proper working condition. There should always be a fully charged fire extinguisher within visible sight. Perform a 360-degree check by walking around the PIT, looking for any leaks or damage. Next, check the brake lights, the turn signals, headlights, and the horn. Be sure that the steering wheel and the wheels themselves are properly corresponding with one another. Slowly but firmly press down several times on the brake pedal to assure that there is sufficient brake pressure. Set the parking brake. When the accelerator is engaged, the PIT should not move. Now we'll check the forklift controls. Lift up should simply lift the forks up. Lift down should lift the forks down. Tilt backward should tilt the forks backward. Tilt forward should tilt the forks forward. Side right should slide the forks right. Side left should slide the forks left. Engage the PIT's reverse gear to ensure that the warning beeper is audible. Should anything be wrong with the PIT, immediately contact your nearest supervisor so that it may be locked out and tagged out. This means the machinery may not be used until it is repaired by a certified technician. Here are just a few things to do and not to do concerning your safety and the safety of others while operating a PIT. Don't try to do tail whips or other tricks with a PIT. Don't accelerate fast, you may lose control. Don't make sudden stops. Do not use reverse for a brake. Don't carry passengers on the forks or any other part of the PIT. Do drive at a moderate speed and be aware of those around you. Do use a spotter when your view is obstructed and when turning around corners. Do sound the horn when approaching blind intersections. And do keep hands and feet inside the operator's carriage at all times. Now let's talk about lifting a load. Always know your PIT's limitations. This information can be found on the information plate concerning lift height and maximum lift weight. Always place the forks under the center of the load, and place the forks under the load as far as possible, making sure not to hit or drag the forks on the pallet. After the load is lifted a few inches, be sure to tilt the forks backward to ensure that the load is secure and will not slide off the end of the forks. As always, proceed at a moderate pace and be aware of your surroundings. When setting a load, tilt the forks forward until the load is level, then let it down lightly so as not to damage the top load or the bottom load. Always insert and withdraw the forks slowly to prevent avoidable upsets and accidents. PITs such as forklifts deal with a center of gravity. The PIT itself has a center of gravity, and the load has a center of gravity, producing a combined center of gravity. As the load is lifted higher, this combined center of gravity moves outward, making the PIT less stable. This load can be better stabilized by tilting the load towards the PIT's main center of gravity. When carrying a load, it should be carried as low as possible, 3 to 12 inches above the surface. And when not carrying a load, 4 inches above the surface. If the load obstructs the front view, the operator must drive in reverse, always making sure to look in the direction of travel. Always be aware of ceiling height and obstacles above. Lower the load accordingly. Carrying loads on upgrades and downgrades. On an upgrade, a forklift must be driven in the forward direction following the load and forks raised only enough to clear the surface. On a downgrade, a forklift should be driven in reverse and the forks raised only enough to clear the surface. Loading docks. Always be sure to chock the wheels of the truck and trailer. Make sure that the dock reaches the trailer, and also be sure that the dock is secure. When parking a PIT, the forks should be lowered to the ground, transmission disengaged, parking brake set, and key turned off and removed. Lastly, the fuel line should be disengaged. Remember that driving a PIT is not like driving a car. Most PITs are rear-wheel steered. This makes them turn quicker and sharper. Be aware of uneven road and floor surfaces as well as slick spots containing grease and oil. In the case of a tip-over, do not try to jump from the PIT. Stay in the driver's seat with your seatbelt on and lean the opposite direction that the PIT is falling. The pallet truck is another type of PIT. This type of PIT is often referred to as a walkie or a walker, for the reason that the operator must walk along with it. All the same rules apply to this PIT as the previous mentioned PIT. Each day before commencing operation of a PIT, a pre-check should be administered and logged. Perform a 360-degree check by walking around the PIT, looking for any leaks or damage.